The sun was rising over Earth. Birds flew in the sky. Children laughed in schoolyards, and people rushed to work as usual. It was a normal day, just like any other. No one knew it would be their last peaceful morning. At 9:42 a.m., the sky cracked open, a deep sound. Like the roar of a giant storm, shook the buildings. People ran outside and looked up. What they saw made hearts freeze. Dark shadows covered the sky. Massive alien ships, black and silver, glowing with strange lights, floated above every major city: New York, Beijing, Paris, Karachi, Tokyo, covered by the same giant crafts. The world went silent, holding its breath. Everyone waited for a message. A warning, a voice. But the ships said nothing. No words, no signs, no communication. Then, without a signal, the attack began. Blue fire rained from the sky. Buildings exploded, roads broke apart, and people screamed as fire consumed the streets. Hospitals, schools, and even shelters were not spared. Within minutes, millions died. The invaders were called the Varnak Empire. They believed in strength, in crushing the weak. To them, Earth was just a noisy, overpopulated world. Unfit to exist in the galaxy, the United Nations tried to respond. Military bases fired missiles, jets flew into the air, but nothing worked. The Varnak ships had shields stronger than anything humans had seen. The missiles bounced off like toys, governments fell, cities turned to dust. And chaos spread. People tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Some hid in basements, others prayed, but the sky kept burning. After 3 days, half the planet was gone. Billion lives ended, like they meant nothing. The Varnak sent a single message across all human channels. It said, "We are the Varnak Empire. You are inferior. Your existence ends now." In a small bunker under the ruins of London, a man named Elias watched the message. His face was bruised, his arm was broken, but his eyes were full of fire. He turned to the others in the bunker: doctors, soldiers, engineers, and even a few kids, he said, in a quiet voice. "They struck first. They think we are weak. But they don't know what happens when humans lose patience." A little girl, maybe 7 years old, asked, "What does that mean?" Elias looked at her, then answered, "It means we don't forgive. We don't forget. And when we hit back, we don't stop, far above Earth." The Varnak commander watched from his throne-like chair. He smiled, thinking it was over. That Earth was broken and finished. He didn't know that in the dirt, in the ashes, something dangerous was growing: hope, anger, and the will to fight back. The Varnak believed they had ended Earth, but they had only awakened something far worse than they imagined. A species that adapts, survives, and never forgets. This was not the end. This was the start of something else. Not a war of power, but a war of heart. They came to wipe out humanity, but what they would get was the end of patience. Beneath the broken city of London, a secret door slid open with a hiss. Dust fell from the ceiling, and old metal groaned, deep underground. Hidden from the alien eyes above, a dark room came to life. Screens flickered. Red lights blinked, and soft humming filled the silence in the center of the room. An old AI system awakened. Its name was ECHO. It had been sleeping for 31 years, locked away after the peace programs made it illegal. Too dangerous, too aggressive, too human, they had said. But now, with Earth burning, someone had turned it back on. "Status check complete," Echo said in a calm female voice. "Planet Earth compromised. 51% of population eliminated. Varnak Empire detected. Initiating protocol. Revenant." On the other side of the bunker, Elias sat at a table, his face hard and quiet. He had once been a captain in Earth's global defense force. Now, he was just a man, trying to keep a few survivors alive. He listened to ECHO's voice through the speakers, his fingers clenched slowly. The AI continued. Resistance probability. 2%. Hope factor. Insufficient. Human rage level. Maximum Revenant protocol approved. A door slid open in the far corner of the room. Behind it were crates, heavy ones, locked and sealed decades ago. Inside them were weapons that had never been used, armor that was banned, and plans for ships that could fly through fire. Elias stood, walked to the crates, and opened the first one. Inside was a black suit, cold to the touch, smooth like glass, but tougher than steel. He smiled, the kind of smile that held no joy, just promise. Other survivors gathered around. There was Raya, a former hacker from New Delhi, Torres, an old mechanic from Mexico City, Juno, a medic who had lost her whole family, and even Cal, a former criminal who once fought against the system. Now, they all stood together. Not as strangers, but as the start of something new. "We don't have an army," Elias said. "We don't have ships, but we have minds. Hands, anger, ECHOs. Voice echoed through the walls. "I can provide blueprints. Tactical data, enemy weaknesses." Raya cracked her knuckles. "I can break into their comms." She said, "I'll find where they sleep." Torres opened a case filled with alien tech parts, taken from fallen Varnock drones. "I can make these things scream." He whispered, "Give me junk. I'll build a monster." Juno touched a small medical drone. "I'll keep us alive, even if the world doesn't want us to be." Even Kel grinned. "I've stolen from humans. Stealing from aliens sounds more fun." They started working right away. No sleep, no time. Echo guided them through old tunnels to other bunkers hidden across the world. In Greenland, a sleeping cryopilot was awakened. In Kenya, a secret launch pad was uncovered beneath a mountain. In Australia, a forgotten space cannon powered up for the first time in years. Humanity wasn't dead. It was waking up, quiet, cold, angry. Above ground, the Varnock continued their attacks. They didn't notice the strange signals deep in the earth. They didn't care. But one young Varnock officer, Saren, noticed something odd. Strange power spikes from abandoned areas. Old satellites moving in strange patterns, he told his commander. But the commander laughed. "Let the insects buzz," he said. "They are finished." Saren watched the data anyway, and deep in his stomach, he felt something new. A feeling the Varnock didn't understand. Fear. Back in the bunker, Elias watched. As Torres connected alien energy cells to a human frame, it sparked, hissed, and then powered up. A soft blue glow spread through the room. "It works," Torres said, surprised. Elias nodded. "We make our own monsters now." Raya cracked the Varnock hums. They heard soldiers laughing about Earth, calling humans mud crawlers. Juno looked at the screen and whispered, "They have no idea what's coming." From the ashes of a broken world, something was rising. Not a government, not an army, but a resistance built from pain, and deep inside every human survivor. The same words began to grow. They struck first. They ended peace. Now, we end patience. The Varnock Empire believed the fight was over. They thought Earth was broken, quiet, and afraid. But deep under the rubble, something sharp was taking shape. Not just weapons. Not just machines. Something more dangerous. Human will. 3 weeks. After the first strike, a ship launched from the Arctic skies. It wasn't large. It wasn't clean. In fact, it looked like scrap metal taped together, but inside it was a core of stolen Varnock tech. And behind the pilot's eyes was fury that burned like a star. Her name was Captain Mira Voss. She had lost her unit during the second wave of the attack. She didn't cry. She didn't talk much. She trained in silence, prepared in rage. Now, she was the first to strike back. As her ship broke into low orbit, she whispered, "No more running. Now, we bite." The Varnock ship guarding Earth's upper atmosphere was massive. It had shields, drones, and hundreds of elite soldiers on board. They laughed when they saw Myra's ship, a junk fighter, coming at them like a lost bird. They powered up weapons, too slow. Myra locked onto the shield frequency. Thanks to Echo and Raya's hacking, she rotated the core, redirected power, and yelled, "Let's see how you like your own fire." Her ship fired a concentrated pulse straight through the weakest part of their shield. Boom! The explosion was small, but it triggered a chain reaction. Fire ripped through their control bay, and the Varnock flagship fell into Earth's ocean. Everyone in the hidden bunkers watched the feed in shock. Even Elias was silent for a moment. Then he smiled slowly and said, "She lit the fire across." The world, humans, cheered in silence. Not loud, not wild, just small smiles, clenched fists. And the first taste of revenge, Myra barely escaped the blast. Her ship burning as she crashed into a snowy mountain. She crawled from the wreckage, bones shaking. But her voice was clear. Mission complete, target destroyed. Juno and a small team rescued her within hours as they carried her back. She laughed softly and whispered, "Let's do that again." The Varnock Empire noticed the loss. Their commanders met in cold rooms with glowing maps. They dismissed it as luck, an accident. A pebble doesn't kill a giant, they said, but one general, Draventhal, didn't smile. He stared at the images of the human attack and said, "Pebbles crack armor, then comes the flood, back." On Earth, things moved fast, using the tech Myra stole. Torres built new weapons. Raya hacked more systems, shutting down Varnock supply lines. Even Kel led a raid on a patrol base in the mountains and came back with stolen fuel. Small teams formed. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't follow rules. They struck fast, left nothing behind, and vanished into the dark. The galaxy had seen human science, human culture, and even human art. But now, for the first time, it was seeing human revenge in one attack. A human drone dropped EMP bombs over a Varnock mining station. The lights went out, the machine stopped. And when the Varnock tried to reboot, the system played a human voice message. It simply said, "We're awake now." The Empire panicked. They sent more troops, more ships. But the humans didn't fight where they were expected. They hit from below, from behind, from places no one thought possible. On the dark side of the moon, a human-built cannon fired a beam that sliced through a patrol cruiser. In the middle of deep space, a stolen cargo ship exploded, taking out an entire Varnock convoy in orbit around Mars. ECHO broadcast a signal that jammed Varnock communications for 3 full days. And still, the humans said nothing. No diplomacy. No surrender, just silence and fire. The Varnock started asking questions. How are they doing this? How are primitives using our own tech? Why don't they stop? But the answer was always the same. They struck first, and now humans had nothing left to lose. Every survivor, every rebel, every broken soldier carried the same message in their hearts. The same cold promise in their minds. This wasn't about survival anymore. This was war. The Varnock took Earth's peace. Now Earth would take their pride across the stars. The name Earth had once meant nothing. A small blue planet on the edge of the galaxy. A place of noise, arguments, and chaos. To the Varnock Empire, it had been just another easy target. But now, things were different. Reports came in from every sector: destroyed patrols, missing supply ships, hacked satellites, one by one. Their control was slipping. The humans weren't just fighting. They were winning in silence, in shadows. In places the Varnock thought were safe, in the halls of the Galactic Council, fear was spreading. The Varnock representative slammed his fist on the table. "This is our business," he growled. "Do not interfere." But the others were no longer listening with respect. The Zerathi, the Thulon. Even the cold and logical Ziri began to murmur. "If humans can strike the Empire," one whispered. "Maybe the Empire can be broken in the shadows of the council chamber." A quiet alien observer from the Draenei tribe leaned forward and said, "They burned half their world, and still they fight. What happens when they grow stronger? Back." On Earth, Elias stood over a glowing table with a hologram of space. Each red dot marked a Varnak base. Each blue dot was a human attack. And the blue was spreading fast. He looked to his team. "Let them fear our name," he said. "Let it reach the stars in the underground command center." Echo spoke again. Varnak morale falling. Enemy fleet movements scattered. Galactic channels show growing panic. Raya smirked as she tapped into another enemy signal. She whispered, "We don't need a bigger army. We just need them to believe we have one." Torres dropped a heavy backpack on the table. "Filled with explosive drones, they believe enough already," he said. One whisper of human presence, and they start running. In a mining system far from Earth, a Varnak ship arrived to collect resources. What they found instead was silence. Machines burned, storage units empty, and a message carved into the floor. "We're still here." The commander turned pale and ordered full retreat. No shots fired, no enemies, send just fear. Fear of the humans who never gave up. Word spread, not from officials, but from frightened soldiers. From whispers between guards, from broken signals and mysterious attacks. And with every story, the legend of Earth grew. In a bar on a trade station, two alien smugglers argued. "I heard a human ship flew straight into a dreadnought." One said, "No weapons, just speed and a war cry." "That's just a story," the other replied, but he still looked over his shoulder. The Varnak Empire tried to silence it. They banned human news, erased data, punished those who spoke the name. But it was too late. The fear had already taken root. Back on Earth, the resistance didn't slow down. Mira was back in action. Her injuries healed. Now she trained pilots young, angry, and fearless. They flew ships made from junk and fire, and each one carried a promise. Strike hard. Vanish fast. Leave nothing behind but fear. Juno and her medics moved between bunkers. They didn't rest. They patched wounds, gave hope, and made the fighters believe they could keep going. Even Kel led a mission into space. He hijacked a cargo freighter full of alien rations. When the Varnak chased him, he dropped fake escape pods filled with bombs. The explosion took out 2 cruisers. He returned laughing, saying, "Never trust a thief, especially a human one." Elias stood before a wall of names. The fallen, he didn't cry. He simply whispered, "You gave your lives. Now we give them fear in the Varnak command fleet." General Draventhal listened to the latest report. Another base gone, another freighter hijacked. Another team missing. He closed his eyes and said, "We created this by thinking humans were weak. Now we face the storm, but the Varnak high." Council refused to admit weakness. They sent more ships, more weapons, more orders. But no matter how many forces they sent, the humans were always one step ahead. Because humans didn't fight like soldiers, they fought like survivors. They didn't wait, they didn't ask. They struck with heart, with fury, with the kind of madness only grief can give. Across the stars, fear of humans became a rumor. Then, a warning, then a truth. The galaxy had mocked Earth once. Now it held its breath every time the name was spoken, and the humans kept going. Not for glory, not for medals, but for the promise made under broken skies. You struck first, you burned. Our world now feel the end of patience. The human resistance had done the impossible. They had survived, they had fought, and now they were ready to go further, right into the heart of the Varnak Empire. Elias stood in the command room, staring at a hologram of enemy space, a deep, Red circle marked their next target, Zereth Prime. It wasn't just another base. It was the main fuel and command station that powered the Empire's central fleet. ECHO's voice echoed through the room. Zereth Prime is heavily guarded. Success probability, 8%. Raya raised an eyebrow. Sounds like fun. Torres chuckled. Adjusting his new armor, 8% means 92% chance to surprise them. Juno, standing beside medical crates, looked serious. If we fail, no one comes back. If we win, we crack the spine of their empire. Myra stepped forward, wearing the upgraded pilot suit built from Varnak tech. Then we aim for the spine, she said, and we break it. The plan was simple and insane. 3 teams. One would disable the shield from inside using a hacked security drone. One would distract the outer patrols with a fake distress signal. And the third Myra strike unit would fly straight into the station and hit the reactor core. They didn't have numbers, they didn't have backup, but they had fire in their blood. Before launch, Elias stood before them. He looked at each. Face scarred, tired, determined. You all know what this means, he said. If we win, the galaxy sees their true face fall. If we fail, let them know we tried with everything we had. The human fleet was still small. Scrap ships, stolen. Crafts. Experimental fighters built in hidden bunkers, but together they looked like a storm waiting to break. They launched from Earth's surface with silent engines. A dozen black shadows streaking across the sky. No parades, no crowds, just the whisper of history being made. The Varnak patrol near Zereth Prime saw the incoming ships. They laughed. We've crushed them before, said one commander. This will be no different. But it was different, because the human signal was fake. Because the drone that entered their station looked like one of their own. And because the humans were already inside, Raya's drone activated inside the base's network core. It sent a virus through the security systems, doors opened, lights shut down. And for 30 seconds, everything went dark. Mira's team entered through the utility bay, moving fast, silent. Like ghosts in the metal corridors, each step was a countdown, each breath a prayer. They planted charges, avoided cameras, and shot only when needed. No mistakes, no second chances. Meanwhile, Kel and his distraction team attacked the outer ring. Explosions lit up space. Fake escape pods launched, drawing fire from the station, but inside, the real battle had begun. Torres found the power core room, his hands shaking but steady. He placed the final charge and whispered, "This one's for the cities you burned." Juno watched their rear. Guarding against the approaching guards, she was wounded but didn't fall. Her eyes were calm, her aim perfect. Myra reached the command bridge. She looked through the glass at the stars beyond, then pressed the detonator. The explosion started. From the core, a deep rumble shook the station. Flames burst through the halls. Systems collapsed one by one. The Varnak scrambled, shouting in panic, but the humans were already gone. Escape pods launched, silent and small, vanishing into the black from afar. Elias watched the screen. A red dot blinked out. Zereth Prime was gone. Silence filled the room. Then came cheers, quiet and strong. Hands were raised, backs were clapped, eyes were wet, not from joy, but from pride. ECHO's voice spoke again. Zereth Prime destroyed. Enemy fleet power reduced by 45%. Galactic response. Uncertain, but the humans didn't need the galaxy to cheer. They had done what no one believed possible. They had cut into the heart of their enemy. And survived. Later, as Mira lay in the medbay, bruised but smiling, she said, "They called us insects. I wonder how it feels to be bitten from inside." Elias looked out at the stars and said softly, "They thought we'd beg. They thought we'd hide, but they forgot one thing. Even fire starts from a small spark. And now, The spark had reached the center of the storm. The destruction of Zirith Prime shook the Varnak Empire. It wasn't just a base, it was a symbol, a heart of power, and now it was ash, for the first time. The Empire couldn't explain it away. They couldn't hide the truth. Their own soldiers whispered in fear. Commanders questioned their orders, and the name human became a warning. The Varnak High Council met in secret. The walls were thick, but the air was thin with tension. General Draven Thule stood before them, his eyes sharp, his voice low. "We didn't just lose a station," he said. "We lost the illusion of control." The others shouted, blamed, denied. Some said to send more ships. Others said to burn Earth completely, but Draven raised one finger. "They're not just defending," he said. "They're hunting us now, meanwhile, on Earth." The resistance prepared for something bigger. They had proven they could strike. Now they planned to end it. Elias walked through the underground hangar. He passed rows of ships, some small, some built from Varnak parts. He watched as fighters trained. Medics moved fast, and engineers soldered wires with shaking hands. All of them tired. All of them. Driven Echo spoke through the main screen. Varnak fleet is repositioning near their capital world. All remaining command ships gathering at Velkaron Prime. Elias stared at the map. One world, one last shield. "Then we go there," he said. "We bring the war to their front door." Mira stood beside him, armor scratched and dented. Her voice calm but fierce. "This won't be a raid. This will be the message." Torres loaded the final prototype warhead into a modified bomber. It was made of alien metal, human fury, and one silent promise. No more warnings. Raya built the code that would blind their sensors. She smiled as she typed, "They'll never see us coming." Juno prepared the wounded for the coming fight. Even those who couldn't walk begged to help. One young man with a missing arm said, "Just give me something to throw." And so, the fleet was gathered, small by galactic standards, but filled with people who had lost everything and who now had nothing left but this final strike as the human ships rose from Earth's hidden ports. The world below watched in silence. No speeches, no victory songs, just eyes looking up, and hearts praying for a future. The journey to Velkaron Prime was short. The final battle began before anyone spoke a word. The humans arrived in a storm of light and fire. Mira led the charge, flying straight into the enemy's teeth. Her ship danced through lasers and missiles like a ghost made of rage. Kel and his strike team boarded a destroyer. They fought hand-to-hand in dark metal halls. Each step forward was earned with blood and breath. Torres released the warhead into the fleet center. The explosion tore through 3 ships. The shockwave rippled across the stars. The Varnak were stunned. They had numbers, they had size. But the humans had something they never understood. Patience lost. Elias, now aboard a command ship, broadcast a message. It was short. "From the ashes of our world, we bring yours down." The message played across enemy systems. It reached every soldier, every officer, every world. The battle raged for hours, and in those hours, the galaxy watched. The Varnak fought hard, but their formations broke. Their pride cracked, because humans didn't stop. They didn't slow. They didn't care about survival anymore. They only cared about the promise. You struck first. Now feel the end of our patience. One by one, the enemy ships fell. The sky above Velkaron turned red. Explosions lit the clouds, and debris rained. On the capital city, on the ground, civilians ran. They looked up and saw their empire collapsing, not from an alien invasion, but from the fire of the very ones they once called primitive. When the smoke cleared, the human fleet was damaged. Many had fallen, but they stood above the ruins of the Varnak command. Velkaron Prime was silent. The High Council destroyed. The war was over. Elias stood on the bridge of his battered ship. He looked at the stars and said, "They thought we'd bow. They thought we'd break. But this is the end of patience, and the beginning of something new." Behind him, Echo whispered, "Victory confirmed. Human presence now recognized across the galaxy. New future unfolding." And as the stars burned bright, the universe remembered that Earth had waited. Earth had endured, but when Earth finally rose, it didn't just survive, it roared. Velcaron Prime burned behind them. Smoke rose into space, a final mark of what had ended. The once great capital of the Varnock Empire was silent now. No more orders, no more threats, no more pride, just silence. The human fleet, battered but alive, floated above the ruins. Ships sparked, some barely holding together. But every pilot, every soldier, every survivor knew one thing. They had won. Not just a battle, not just revenge. They had made history. Elias stood on the bridge of the command ship, his uniform torn, one hand wrapped in bandages. He looked out the window as Velcaron's light flickered. Raya stood beside him, tired but smiling. "We did it," she whispered. Torres sat against a wall, holding a toolkit in one hand and a small metal star in the other. He had taken it from a Varnock control panel, a trophy, not for power, but for memory. Juno moved among the wounded, calming them, treating them. Her hands never stopped, even though her body was trembling. "You rest after peace," she said softly, "not before." Mira's ship had taken heavy damage, but she landed it herself. Smoke poured from the engines as she climbed out. She raised one fist to the sky, and the crew cheered. Quiet, broken. Cheers, but real news of the victory spread fast. Not through official broadcasts, but through whispers, stolen signals, and shocked witnesses all across the galaxy. Alien species who once feared the Varnock paused. They listened, and for the first time, they heard a different name, human, on trade stations, in pirate dens, in hidden bunkers and royal courts. They spoke the story. They struck Earth. Earth struck back, and now the Empire is dust. The Varnock survivors went into hiding. Their fleet scattered, their leaders gone. Some tried to rebuild, most simply disappeared. But everywhere they went, they found walls. Waiting, old allies turned cold, old enemies turned brave. And behind all of it stood the shadow of one word: Earth. The Galactic Council held an emergency session, not to punish humans, but to invite them. To ask for guidance, for balance, for peace. Elias refused their first call. He stood before a gathering of survivors in a quiet field back on Earth. Mountains in the distance, smoke no longer rising from the cities. He said, "We didn't fight for power, we fought for the right to live." They buried the fallen with honor. No ranks, no flags, just names. Names that would be remembered in every corner of the stars. Small colonies began to rebuild. Children ran again in the streets. Farmers returned to broken lands and planted seeds. The stars still held scars, but now they also held stories. One boy, standing under the night sky, asked his mother, "Will they come back?" She smiled, brushed his hair, and said, "Let them try." The resistance slowly became something else. A council of protectors, not rulers. They didn't take territory. They offered help. When a planet cried for aid, humans answered. When a people were threatened, humans stood beside them. They had become something feared. Now they chose to be something respected. Elias visited Mira at the flight academy. She now trained new pilots, young and eager. "Teach them to fly," he asked. She smiled. "I teach them to finish what they start." Raya opened a school for alien and human tech engineers. Torres built ships for peaceful trade. Kel, once a thief, now ran a supply network that gave food to war-torn moons. Even Juno became a name known across star systems as a healer of both humans and aliens. But they never forgot, not the pain, not the fire, not the silence after the first strike. ECHO's final message played during a ceremony on the New Earth Memorial Station. Survival confirmed, future unlocked. Let them remember, and they. Did the galaxy remembered? They remembered that Earth was quiet until pushed too far. That humans were patient until patience was mistaken for weakness. That humanity could forgive but never forget. No one would strike Earth again without thinking. Twice. No empire would rise again without hearing the echo of this war. And in the quiet of night, when the stars were clear, some would say they could still hear a voice, a whisper across the void. You struck first. We ended you last, and we will always be here not to conquer, but to remind you what happens when humans lose patience.